Hey there. Tonight we're doing something a little different, a little unsanitary. We're stepping into the life of the tersorium bearer in ancient Rome, the Roman Empire at its height, if you're keeping track, which you probably aren't because you're trying to fall asleep. This is not a story about gladiators or emperors or marble statues gleaming in the Mediterranean sun. This is not about legions marching or senators debating or any of the stuff that makes it into the movies. This is about a sponge on a stick, specifically about maintaining the sponges on sticks that Romans used to wipe themselves after using public latrines. Someone had to keep those sponges clean. Someone had to replace them when they fell apart. Someone had to stand in a room that smelled like the collective bowels of an empire and make sure the hygiene implements were ready for the next person who needed them. That someone is you. If you're enjoying these little excursions into historical jobs that nobody wanted, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more of this particular brand of unglamorous labor. And if you have thoughts about Roman sanitation or the specific indignities of maintaining communal bathroom equipment, drop a comment. I read them. Sometimes I wonder why I read them, but I do. Now, dim the lights. Get comfortable. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum that drowns out the modern world and replaces it with the sound of water flowing through ancient sewers. Let's begin. The job sounds ridiculous. Let's just acknowledge that up front. Tersorium bearer. Sponge stick maintainer. The person who cleans the things people use to clean themselves after they shit. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like the kind of job someone made up to illustrate how far a person can fall in a hierarchical society. It sounds absurd. It is your life. And here's the thing about your life. It's not funny when you're living it. It's not a punchline when you wake up before dawn and walk through streets that are still dark and cold, heading toward a public latrine that serves hundreds of people a day. It's not amusing when your hands smell like vinegar and salt, and things vinegar and salt can't quite cover, no matter how long you soak them. It's not a joke when you're invisible to almost everyone who uses the facilities you maintain, noticed only when something goes wrong, blamed immediately, thanked never. You are a necessary component of Roman civilization. You are also the person nobody wants to think about. The Romans are proud of their sanitation systems, justifiably so. They've built aqueducts that carry fresh water across miles of countryside. They've constructed the Cloaca Maxima, a sewer system so impressive that it's still partially in use 2,000 years later. They've created public latrines that are marvels of engineering, flowing water, stone benches, efficient waste removal. They've turned the basic human need to defecate into a social activity, a place where people gather and talk and conduct business while sitting shoulder to shoulder on marble seats with holes cut into them. It's genuinely impressive. It also requires maintenance. That's where you come in. Your job is to maintain the tersoriums, the sponges on sticks that Romans use instead of toilet paper, which hasn't been invented yet and won't be for more than a millennium. Each tersorium is a sea sponge attached to a wooden stick, usually about 1.5 feet long. The sponges sit in large buckets filled with a solution of vinegar, salt, and lime. This solution is supposed to disinfect them. Whether it actually does is a question you've learned not to ask, because the answer doesn't change anything about your job. There are multiple tersoriums per latrine. Has to be 20, 30, sometimes 40 people using the facilities at once during busy hours. They need the implements. They use them. They put them back in the buckets. You make sure the buckets are full of solution. You make sure the sponges are still attached to the sticks. You replace the ones that are too worn or too disgusting to remain in rotation. You rinse the sticks. You maintain the system. You are the system. Without you, the whole thing falls apart. The sponges would disintegrate. The buckets would empty. The sticks would break. The carefully engineered Roman latrine would become unusable. And the people who use it, soldiers, merchants, slaves, freedmen, occasionally even wealthy citizens who prefer the social atmosphere of public facilities, would have to find somewhere else to go, somewhere less sanitary, somewhere less civilized. Rome runs on systems like this, and systems like this run on people like you. The job has no prestige. Obviously. You're not going to find yourself invited to dinner parties where you can discuss your work maintaining communal hygiene implements. You're not going to be praised in the forum. There's no career advancement, no pathway from tersorium bearer to anything else. This is the job. This is where you are. Whether you're a slave assigned to this task, a freedman who couldn't find better work, or a free citizen so poor that this was the only employment available, it doesn't matter much. The work is the same. The smell is the same. The social status is the same, which is to say, barely existent. People don't look at you. That's the thing you notice most. When you're working, moving through the latrine with your buckets and your replacement sponges, people don't make eye contact. They look past you. Through you. You're part of the infrastructure, like the flowing water or the stone benches. Necessary, but not worth acknowledging. Except when something goes wrong. Then they notice you immediately. If a sponge falls apart in someone's hand, your fault. If the vinegar solution smells worse than usual, your fault. If there aren't enough tersoriums available during a busy period, your fault. Never mind that you're working with limited resources, that sponges wear out, that the solution needs changing, and you can only change it so fast. Never mind that you're one person trying to maintain facilities used by hundreds. When something goes wrong, you're suddenly very visible, very blamable. The rest of the time, you're a ghost. You've gotten used to it. That's the worst part, maybe. You've gotten used to being invisible. You've gotten used to the smell. Not that it goes away, but your brain stops registering it as aggressively after a few hours. You've gotten used to the sounds of the latrine, the conversations people have while sitting on those marble benches, the jokes they make, the business they conduct. You've gotten used to moving through crowds of people who are in various states of undress and vulnerability, and not one of them acknowledges your presence unless they need something. You've gotten used to your hands. Your hands are always damp. The vinegar solution, the water you use for rinsing, the humidity of the latrine itself, which is always warm and moist from the bodies and the flowing water and the poor ventilation. Your skin has started to crack around the knuckles. The smell has worked its way into the creases of your palms, into the beds of your fingernails. You wash them when you can. It doesn't help much. The smell comes back. It always comes back. You've gotten used to your back hurting. The work is physical. Bending to lift buckets. Reaching to replace sponges in their holders. Standing for hours. Walking back and forth across the latrine floor, which is always slightly wet, always slightly slippery. Your lower back has developed a permanent ache. Your shoulders are tight. You're not old, but your body feels old. This job ages you in ways that aren't visible, but are definitely felt. You've gotten used to being tired. The latrine opens early, before dawn. You need to be there before it opens, to prepare. to make sure everything is ready for the first wave of people who need to use the facilities. You work until evening, until the crowds thin out and the latrine closes for the night. Then you do your final maintenance, your final cleaning, and you walk home through streets where people give you a subtle but noticeable amount of space because they can smell what you do for a living. You've gotten used to all of it. That's what happens when something is your life, instead of a story about someone else's life. It stops being absurd and starts being routine. The human capacity for adaptation is remarkable. You can get used to almost anything if you do it long enough. You can normalize the strangest circumstances. You can find a rhythm in the most degrading work. You can stand in a Roman public latrine surrounded by the sounds and smells of human waste, holding a sponge on a stick that dozens of people have used to wipe themselves, and think, "This is my job. This is what I do. This is fine. It's not fine, but it's yours." The Romans built an empire. They conquered territories from Britain to North Africa, from Spain to Syria. They created laws and roads and literature and architecture that would influence human civilization for millennia. They developed engineering techniques that wouldn't be matched for 1,000 years. They turned a city-state into the dominant power of the Mediterranean world. And every single day, in every major city in that empire, someone had to maintain the sponges. Someone had to make sure the tersoriums were clean enough to use. Someone had to replace them when they wore out. Someone had to keep the buckets filled with vinegar solution. Someone had to do the work that made Roman sanitation possible. That someone is you. Not because you chose it. Not because you dreamed of it as a child. Not because it's a calling or a passion or anything remotely resembling fulfilling work. But because someone has to do it, and you're the one who does. The job is ridiculous. Your life is not. There's a difference. And you're about to spend the next however many hours understanding exactly what that difference feels like. One sponge at a time. One bucket at a time. One day that feels exactly like the last day and exactly like the next day. In a public latrine in the greatest empire the world has ever seen. Welcome to work. The marble is cold under your feet, even through your sandals. The water is already flowing in the channels beneath the benches, that constant sound that becomes the background music of your entire existence. The smell is there, waiting. It's always there. It's always waiting. You have buckets to check, sponges to count, a day to get through. Let's begin. The streets are empty when you leave your apartment. Not completely empty. Rome never sleeps entirely. There are always people moving through the darkness. Night soil collectors, bakers starting their ovens, prostitutes finishing their shifts, the occasional drunk stumbling home. But it's quiet in a way it never is during the day. The cobblestones are cold under your feet. The air smells like smoke and piss, and the particular dampness that settles over the city before dawn. You walk quickly, not because you're late. You're never late. You can't afford to be late. But because the streets before dawn belong to people who have reasons to be out in the dark, and you'd rather not find out what those reasons are, you keep your head down. You move with purpose. You're invisible during the day when you're working. You'd like to stay invisible now. The latrine is in the Subura district, not the worst part of Rome, but not the best either. It's a working neighborhood, crowded, loud during the day. The kind of place where people live on top of each other in apartment blocks that are always one fire away from collapse. The latrine serves this neighborhood. Hundreds of people a day, maybe thousands. you've never counted. You just know that the flow never stops. The benches are never empty for long, and your work is never finished. You can smell it before you see it. That's the thing about latrines. The smell has a radius. It extends beyond the building itself, seeping into the surrounding streets like an invisible fog. Most people who live nearby have gotten used to it. They don't notice anymore. Or they pretend not to notice. You notice. You always notice. Even though you spend your entire day inside the smell, even though it's soaked into your clothes and your hair and probably your lungs by now, you still notice it when you're approaching. That first whiff that tells you you're getting close. Vinegar and shit and stagnant water and something else. Something organic and rotting that you can't quite identify and have learned not to think about too hard. The building itself is unimpressive from the outside. Stone walls. A wide entrance with no door. Latrines don't have doors. Privacy isn't really a Roman concept when it comes to bodily functions. A few steps leading down. That's it. No grand architecture. No columns or decorative friezes. This isn't the forum. This isn't a temple. This is a public toilet. Functional. Necessary. Unglamorous. You descend the steps. The temperature drops immediately. The latrine is partially underground, built that way to connect with the sewer system that runs beneath the city. It's always cooler down here than on the street. In summer, that's almost pleasant. In winter, it's bone-deep cold that the humidity makes worse. Right now, in the early morning, it's cold enough that you can see your breath mixing with the steam that rises from the water channels. The space opens up in front of you. It's bigger than people expect. The latrine can accommodate 40 people at once, maybe 50 if they squeeze. The main room is rectangular, with stone benches running along 3 walls. The benches are marble, real marble, smooth and white, and probably expensive when they were installed. They're stained now, discoloured, worn in places from years of use. But still marble. Still a sign that Rome takes its sanitation seriously. The benches have holes cut into them. 23 holes along the back wall. 12 on each side wall. 47 total. You've counted. The holes are spaced close together. Uncomfortably close. When the latrine is full, people sit shoulder to shoulder, thigh to thigh, close enough to have conversations, close enough to conduct business, close enough that there's no pretending you're alone. Romans don't seem to mind. They treat it like a social club, a place to gather and talk and catch up on gossip while they shit. You mind. Not because you're using the facilities. You're not. You have your own arrangement. A chamber pot in your apartment that you empty into the street drain like everyone else who can't afford private plumbing. But because you have to work around these people, you have to move through the space while it's full of bodies and sounds and smells. You have to maintain the tersoriums while people are actively using them. But that's later. Right now, the latrine is empty. Just you and the marble and the water. The water flows in channels beneath the benches. It's an engineering marvel, genuinely. The Romans figured out how to divert water from the aqueducts, channel it through the city, route it beneath the latrine benches, and use the constant flow to carry waste away into the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer that empties into the Tiber. It works. Mostly. The water flows. The waste disappears. The system functions. It's also loud. The sound of flowing water echoes off the stone walls. It's constant. Unchanging. a low rushing sound that fills the space and never stops. During the day, when the latrine is full of people talking and laughing and conducting their business, you barely notice it. But now, in the empty pre-dawn quiet, it's the only sound. Water flowing over stone. Water carrying things you don't think about. Water that's been flowing since before you started this job, and will keep flowing long after you're gone. The smell is worse when the latrine is empty. You'd think it would be better. No people. No fresh contributions to the general atmosphere. But the smell concentrates overnight. It settles. It becomes thick and almost solid, hanging in the humid air like something you could touch. Waste and vinegar and damp stone and the particular funk of a space that never fully dries, never gets fresh air, never stops being what it is. You breathe through your mouth. It doesn't help much. The smell gets in anyway. It coats your tongue. It fills your lungs. After a few minutes, you stop noticing it as much. Your brain adapts. It has to. You can't spend 12 hours a day in this space if you're constantly aware of how it smells. So your brain does you the favor of turning down the volume on your sense of smell. Not off. Just down. Enough that you can function. Enough that you can work. Your maintenance corner is in the back, near the far wall. It's not really a corner. It's just where you keep your supplies. 3 large clay vessels, each one big enough to hold a dozen tersoriums. A smaller bucket for fresh water. A pile of clean rags that won't stay clean for long. A few replacement sponges, still dry, waiting to be attached to sticks. A wooden crate where you keep the sticks themselves. Some new, some worn. Some that probably should have been thrown out months ago. But you're making them last because replacement supplies don't come as often as they should. The vessels are filled with solution. Vinegar, salt, and lime. That's the recipe. That's what's supposed to keep the tersoriums clean. Disinfected. Safe to use. Whether it actually works is a question for people who know more about medicine than you do, which is everyone. You just know that this is what you're supposed to use. This is what you were told to use. So you use it. The vinegar smell hits you first. Sharp. Acidic. Strong enough to cut through even the background smell of the latrine. You've learned to associate that vinegar smell with work, with the start of your day, with the moment when you stop being a person, walking through the city, and become a tersorium bearer, a latrine worker, a component of Roman sanitation infrastructure. You kneel beside the first vessel. The tersoriums are soaking inside, their wooden handles sticking up out of the solution, like strange plants growing in a very unpleasant garden. You count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. There should be 12. You check the other vessels. 12 in the second one. 13 in the third. 36 total. You need at least 40 for a busy day. Preferably more. Someone took one home. It happens. People steal the tersoriums. Not often, but often enough that you've learned to expect it. Maybe they need it for their own private latrine. Maybe they're selling it. Maybe they just wanted to see if they could get away with taking something. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're short 1 tersorium, and you'll need to make a replacement before the morning rush starts. You pull one of the tersoriums out of the solution. The sponge is heavy with liquid. Vinegar and salt water drip from it, running down the wooden handle and onto your hands. The sponge itself is sea sponge, natural, full of holes and channels that make it absorbent. Effective. This one is still in decent shape. The sponge is intact, still firmly attached to the stick. The stick itself is smooth, worn from use but not splintering. This one stays in rotation. You check the next one. The sponge is starting to fall apart. You can see it immediately. The edges are fraying. There are tears in the surface. When you squeeze it gently, pieces come away in your hand. This one is done. It's served its purpose. It's wiped the asses of dozens, maybe hundreds of Romans. It's earned its retirement. You set it aside. The third tersorium looks fine until you examine the attachment point. The sponge is tied to the stick with cord, and the cord is rotting. It's still holding, but barely. Give it another day, maybe 2, and the sponge will fall off mid-use. Someone will be left holding a stick while the sponge drops into the water channel below. They'll be angry. They'll blame you. Better to replace it now. You work your way through all 36 tersoriums. It takes time. Each one needs to be inspected, checked for wear, evaluated. Some are fine, some are borderline, some are definitely done. You make piles. The good ones go back into the vessels. The questionable ones get set aside for closer examination. The ruined ones go into a separate bucket for disposal. By the time you're finished, you've identified 7 tersoriums that need to be replaced. 7. You have 4 replacement sponges. The math doesn't work. It never works. You're always short on supplies. The person who's supposed to deliver fresh sponges comes irregularly, sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month. You've learned to make do. You've learned to extend the life of sponges that should have been thrown out. You've learned to repair attachments with fresh cord. You've learned to be resourceful in ways that nobody notices or appreciates. You start with the replacement sponges you have. Each one needs to be attached to a stick. You select 4 sticks from your crate, checking each one for splinters or cracks. The sticks need to be smooth. Nobody wants to use a tersorium that's going to give them splinters in a very sensitive area. You find 4 good ones. You soak them briefly in the vinegar solution to soften the wood slightly, make it easier to work with. Then you attach the sponges. It's simple work. Tedious work. You take a length of cord, good cord, strong cord, the kind that won't rot immediately in the vinegar solution, and you tie the sponge to the end of the stick. Tight. Secure. You test it by pulling on the sponge, making sure it won't come loose. You tie it again, double knotting it. You trim the excess cord. 4 new tersoriums. That leaves 3 that still need replacing, and you're out of fresh sponges. So you do what you always do. You take 3 of the questionable tersoriums, the ones that are worn but not completely ruined, and you repair them. You reinforce the cord. You trim away the most damaged parts of the sponge. You make them functional enough to last another few days, maybe a week if you're lucky. It's not ideal. Nothing about this job is ideal. But it's what you have to work with. You place all the tersoriums back into the vessels, arranging them so the handles stick up at even intervals. 40 tersoriums now. Enough for the day. Probably. The solution in the vessels needs changing. You can tell by the colour. It's supposed to be clear, or at least clearish. Right now, it's cloudy. Discoloured. There are bits of things floating in it that you've learned not to examine too closely. You'll change it later. Right now, you need to prepare the space. You take your bucket of fresh water and your rags, and you start wiping down the marble benches. They're damp from the humidity. They're stained from use. You wipe them anyway. It's part of the routine, part of making the latrine ready for the people who will use it. The marble is cold under your hands, smooth and cold and slightly slick with moisture. You work your way along the back wall, wiping each section of bench, cleaning around each hole. The holes are worn smooth from years of use. Thousands of people have sat here. Thousands more will sit here. The marble will outlast all of them. It will outlast you. You finish the back wall and move to the side walls. The same routine. Wipe. Clean. Move to the next section. Your knees hurt from kneeling. Your back hurts from bending. Your hands are already damp and wrinkled from the water. The day hasn't even started yet. The water keeps flowing beneath the benches. That sound. That constant rushing sound. It's the soundtrack of your life. You hear it in your sleep sometimes. You hear it when you're walking through the city. You hear it when you're trying to think about anything else. Water flowing over stone. Water carrying waste. Water that never stops, never rests, never cares that you're tired. You stand up. Your knees crack. Your back protests. You're not old. But this job is making you old. You can feel it in your joints, in your muscles, in the way your body responds to simple movements. This work is aging you in ways that aren't visible, but are definitely felt. The latrine is ready. The benches are clean. The tersoriums are prepared. The water is flowing. Everything is in place. In an hour, maybe less, the first people will start arriving. They'll descend those steps. They'll take their seats on the marble benches. They'll reach for the tersoriums you've prepared. They'll use the facilities you've maintained. And they won't think about you at all. They won't think about the person who arrived before dawn to make sure everything was ready. They won't think about the hands that inspected each sponge, that tied each cord, that wiped down each section of marble. They won't think about the work that makes their civilized Roman bathroom experience possible. You're invisible. You've always been invisible. You check the vessels one more time. Count the tersoriums again. 40. Enough. Probably enough. You arrange them so they're easy to access. You position yourself near your maintenance corner, ready to respond when something goes wrong. Because something always goes wrong. The water flows. The smell settles. The day is about to begin. You hear them before you see them. Footsteps on the stone steps. Voices echoing down from street level. The sound of the city waking up and immediately needing to shit. It's always the same. The first arrivals come early, before the real crowds, before the latrine becomes the social gathering place it will be by mid-morning. These early ones are workers. People who need to get in, get out, get on with their day. A man descends the steps. He's wearing a tunic that's seen better days. Construction worker, maybe. Or a dock labourer. Someone who works with his hands and his back. He doesn't look at you. Doesn't acknowledge your presence. He walks directly to the benches, selects a spot near the middle of the back wall, and sits down. The marble is cold. You can tell by the way he shifts slightly, adjusting to the temperature. He reaches for a tersorium without looking. His hand finds one of the vessels, pulls out a sponge on a stick, uses it. The whole process takes maybe 2 minutes. He's efficient. Practiced. This is routine for him. When he's done, he drops the tersorium back into the vessel and leaves. No conversation. No lingering. Just in and out. You don't move. There's nothing to do yet. The tersorium he used is fine. It's back in the solution. The system is working. You stand near your corner and wait for the next person. And the next. and the next. They come in a steady trickle at first. A woman with a basket of bread, a slave running an errand for his master, an old man who takes his time, who sits on the bench and groans with relief. Each one follows the same pattern. Enter. Sit. Use the facilities. Use the tersorium. Leave. Some of them nod to each other. Most don't. It's too early for socializing. Too early for the latrine to become the gathering place it will be later. You watch the tersoriums. That's your job. Watch and wait. Make sure the sponges are available. Make sure the solution levels are adequate. Make sure nothing goes wrong. It's boring work. Tedious work. The kind of work where time moves slowly because nothing is happening. But you can't relax, because something might happen. The trickle becomes a stream. By the time the sun is fully up, there are 10 people in the latrine. Then 15. Then 20. The benches start to fill. People sit closer together. The space that was empty and echoing an hour ago is now full of bodies and voices and the sounds of people doing what people do in latrines. The conversations start. That's the thing about Roman public toilets. They're social spaces. People don't come here just to shit. They come here to talk, to catch up, to conduct business. The lack of privacy doesn't bother them. Or if it does, they've learned to ignore it. They sit shoulder to shoulder on those marble benches, close enough to touch, and they talk like they're at the baths or the forum, or anywhere else people gather. Did you hear about Marcus? Which Marcus? The one who runs the wine shop near the temple. What about him? Caught his wife with the baker. The baker, that fat bastard. The same. Laughter. The sound echoes off the stone walls, mixing with the sound of flowing water and other less pleasant sounds. You're standing 3 feet away from this conversation. You could reach out and touch either of them. They don't look at you. They don't acknowledge that you're there. You're part of the infrastructure, like the marble, like the water. A merchant sits down next to a man you recognize as a regular. They start talking immediately. Business. A shipment of olive oil that's late. A dispute over payment. The merchant is angry. The other man is defensive. Their voices rise. Not quite shouting, but close. Other people on the benches glance over, mildly interested, then return to their own conversations. You move through the space, not because anything needs your immediate attention, but because you need to stay visible enough that people know you're working. Invisible enough that they don't really see you. It's a balance. You check the vessels. You count the tersoriums. You make sure the solution levels are adequate. You're doing your job. Nobody notices. A soldier enters. You can tell he's a soldier, even though he's not in full uniform. Something about the way he carries himself, the way he moves. He's young, probably stationed at one of the nearby barracks. He sits down heavily on the bench, taking up more space than necessary. The man next to him shifts slightly to accommodate. The soldier reaches for a tersorium. He pulls one out of the vessel, examines it briefly, makes a face. "This one's falling apart," he says. To no one in particular. Or maybe to you. It's hard to tell. You move closer. "I'll replace it," you say. Your voice sounds strange. You haven't spoken yet today. The words come out rough, quiet. The soldier doesn't look at you. He's already dropped the worn tersorium back into the vessel and grabbed another one. This one meets his standards, apparently. He uses it without further comment. You retrieve the worn tersorium. He's right. It is falling apart. The sponge is fraying badly. You should have caught this during your morning inspection. You didn't. Now you have. You take it back to your corner, add it to the discard pile, grab a replacement from your dwindling supply. You attach it to a stick. You tie the cord. You test it. You add it to the vessel. The whole process takes maybe 5 minutes. Nobody notices. The latrine is full now. 30 people, maybe more. Every section of bench is occupied. People are sitting close enough that their thighs touch, close enough that they can't avoid hearing each other's conversations, each other's bodily functions, each other's breathing. The Romans don't seem to mind, or they've learned not to mind. Privacy is not a Roman value, at least not when it comes to this. The noise level rises. Multiple conversations happening simultaneously. A group of men near the left wall are arguing about chariot racing. Blues versus greens. The argument is getting heated. Voices rising. Hands gesturing. One of them is half standing, making his point emphatically while still technically using the facilities. It would be absurd if it weren't so normal. Near the back wall, 2 women are gossiping. You catch fragments of their conversation as you move past. Something about a neighbour. Something about a scandal. Something about someone's daughter. And someone's son. And a situation that needs resolving. They're speaking in low voices, but not that low. Everyone nearby can hear them. Nobody pretends not to be listening. A man enters who's clearly been drinking. It's not even midday yet, but he's drunk. Stumbling drunk. He navigates the steps carefully, holding onto the wall. He makes it to the benches without falling. Small victories. He sits down heavily, nearly missing the hole. The man next to him shifts away slightly. Not far. There's nowhere to go. Just far enough to establish a boundary. The drunk man starts singing. Quietly at first, then louder. It's a song you don't recognize, probably something obscene. The other people in the latrine ignore him. This is not unusual. Drunk people use public latrines. Drunk people sing. Life continues. You check the water flow. It's one of your constant concerns. The water needs to keep flowing beneath the benches. That's what carries the waste away. That's what makes the whole system work. Usually it's fine. The aqueducts are reliable. The channels are well designed. But sometimes things go wrong. Blockages. Slowdowns. Backups. You've learnt to monitor it constantly. Right now the flow looks good. The water is moving at its normal pace. Clear enough. Fast enough. Doing its job. You can hear it beneath the voices, beneath the other sounds. That constant rushing. That background noise that never stops. A merchant and a customer are conducting a transaction. They're sitting next to each other on the bench, and they're negotiating the price of something. Fabric, it sounds like. The merchant is explaining why his prices are fair. The customer is explaining why they're too high. Back and forth. Neither of them seems bothered by the location of this negotiation. This is normal. This is how business gets done. You replace another tersorium. This one wasn't requested. You just noticed it was worn. The sponge is still attached, but barely. Better to replace it now than wait for it to fail. You make the swap quickly. Drop the old one in your discard bucket. Place the new one in the vessel. Nobody notices. Nobody cares. The morning becomes midday. You can tell by the light. By the angle of the sun coming down the steps. By the way the temperature in the latrine shifts slightly. It's getting warmer. The humidity is increasing. More bodies. More breath. More heat. The smell intensifies. It's always there, but it gets worse as the day progresses. Worse as more people use the facilities. Worse as the heat builds. The crowd never thins. That's the thing about a public latrine in a major Roman city. There's always someone who needs to use it. As people leave, new people arrive. The benches never empty completely. There's always conversation. Always the sound of water. Always the smell. A group of slaves enters together. You can tell they're slaves by their clothing, by the way they move, by the fact that they're traveling as a group, probably running errands for their masters. They take seats near the front, filling an entire section of bench. They talk among themselves, quietly, carefully. Even here, even in this most democratic of spaces, there are hierarchies. There are things you don't say, things you don't do. One of them reaches for a tersorium and the sponge comes off in his hand. The stick is left behind. The sponge drops into the water channel below. The slave looks startled, then annoyed. He looks around, and for the first time today, someone makes eye contact with you. "This one's broken," he says. You move immediately. "I'll get you another," you say. You retrieve a fresh tersorium from the vessel. You hand it to him. He takes it without thanks, without acknowledgement beyond the initial complaint. You fish the fallen sponge out of the water channel with a long hook you keep for exactly this purpose. It's disgusting. The sponge is soaked with things you don't want to think about. You drop it in your discard bucket. You make a mental note to check all the cord attachments again. This is the second failure today. The slave uses the replacement tersorium and leaves. His companions follow. The section of bench they occupied fills immediately with new arrivals. The cycle continues. People in, people out. The benches never empty. The conversations never stop. Two men are arguing about politics. You don't follow politics closely. You don't have time. You don't have the luxury. But you hear fragments. Something about the Senate. Something about taxes. Something about a decision that affects trade. One man is angry. The other is dismissive. Their voices rise. Other people on the benches are listening now. Some nodding. Some shaking their heads. Politics in a public latrine. Democracy in action. A woman enters with a small child. The child is maybe 4 or 5 years old, too young to come alone. The woman helps the child onto the bench, holds them steady. The child is nervous. Scared of the hole, maybe. Scared of falling through. The woman speaks softly, reassuringly. Other people on the benches smile. Someone makes a joke. The child relaxes slightly. You check the solution levels in the vessels. They're getting low. Not critically low, but low enough that you'll need to top them up soon. You have a large jug of vinegar in your corner. You have salt. You have lime. You'll mix a fresh batch during a quiet moment. If there is a quiet moment. If the crowd ever thins enough that you can step away from monitoring. It doesn't thin. The latrine remains full. Constantly full. The conversations blend together into a wall of sound. Voices and water, and the occasional laugh. And the sounds of bodies doing what bodies do. It all mixes together. It all becomes background noise. You stop hearing individual words. You just hear the general hum of human activity. A man vomits. Not into the latrine hole, just vomits. Onto the floor. Onto himself. He's sick. Or drunk. Or both. The people near him move away as much as they can, which isn't far. Someone curses. Someone else laughs. The man who vomited looks miserable. He finishes using the facilities and leaves quickly, stumbling back up the steps. You get your bucket and rags. This is also your job. Cleaning up. Maintaining the space. You wipe up the vomit. You rinse the floor. You try not to breathe through your nose. The smell of vomit mixes with all the other smells. It's not the worst thing you've dealt with. It's not even the worst thing you've dealt with today. You finish cleaning. You return to your corner. Nobody thanks you. Nobody acknowledges what you just did. The rhythm of the day settles in. It's repetitive. Endlessly repetitive. People arrive. People sit. People talk. People use the tersoriums. People leave. You monitor. You maintain. You replace. You clean. The water flows. The smell persists. The conversations continue. Time passes in a strange way. Slowly and quickly at the same time. Each moment feels long. Each hour disappears. You're standing in the same spot you've been standing in for hours. Your feet hurt. Your back hurts. Your hands are perpetually damp from the solution, from the water, from the humidity. You shift your weight from foot to foot. It doesn't help much. The marble floor is hard. Unforgiving. Your body is starting to ache in that deep, persistent way that means you'll feel this tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. But the day isn't over. Not even close. The sun is high now. Midday. The busiest time. The latrine is packed. Every seat occupied. People waiting near the entrance for spots to open up. The noise level is at its peak. The smell is at its worst. The heat is building. And you're still here. Still monitoring. Still maintaining. Still invisible. A merchant finishes his business and stands. Another person immediately takes his place. The bench is never empty. The cycle never stops. The tersoriums move from vessel to hand to use to vessel, over and over, dozens of times, hundreds of times. You've stopped counting. This is your life. This is your day. This is the rhythm you've learned to live with. The water flows beneath the benches. The conversations echo off the stone walls. The smell hangs in the humid air. And you stand in your corner, watching, waiting, ready to respond when something goes wrong. Because something always goes wrong. A soldier makes a joke. He's sitting near the middle of the back wall, surrounded by other soldiers. They came in as a group. They always do. Military men travel in packs, even when they're taking a shit. This one is young. Maybe 20. Maybe younger. He's telling a story about his centurion. Something about a brothel and a case of mistaken identity. The other soldiers are laughing. Loud, barking laughs that echo off the stone walls. You're standing 5 feet away. You can hear every word. You're part of the audience whether you want to be or not. The soldier gestures wildly as he reaches the punchline. His friends roar. One of them laughs so hard he nearly falls off the bench. They're having the time of their lives. In a public toilet. While you stand there holding a bucket of vinegar solution and replacement sponges. The soldier who told the joke reaches for a tersorium. He uses it without breaking stride in the conversation. Doesn't even look at it. Just grabs it, uses it, drops it back in the vessel. The whole thing takes maybe 10 seconds. Then he's back to talking. Back to laughing. Back to being a person with friends and stories. And a life that extends beyond this room. You check the tersorium he just used. It's fine. Still intact. Still functional. You leave it in the vessel. You move on. The soldiers don't notice you. They never do. Your furniture, your infrastructure. You're the person who makes sure the sponges are available when they need them. The sound of the latrine changes as morning becomes midday. It's subtle. You probably wouldn't notice if you didn't spend every day here. But the pitch shifts. The echo changes. In the morning, when there are fewer people, the sound is sharper. Individual voices stand out. Individual sounds. You can hear the water flowing beneath the benches more clearly. You can hear footsteps on the stairs. You can hear the scrape of sandals on marble. By midday, everything blends together. The voices become a wall of sound. Conversations overlap. Laughter mixes with arguments, mixes with the sounds of bodies doing what bodies do. The water beneath the benches is still flowing, but you can barely hear it anymore. It's buried under everything else. Under the noise of 40 people occupying the same space, talking, breathing, existing. The humidity increases too. More bodies means more heat, more breath, more moisture in the air. The latrine is always damp, but by midday it's oppressive. The air feels thick, heavy, like you're breathing through wet cloth. Your tunic sticks to your skin. Sweat runs down your back. The smell intensifies in the heat, gets worse, gets richer, gets more layered. You've learned to identify the layers. There's the base layer, the smell of the sewer itself, old waste, stagnant water, stone that's been soaked in filth for decades. That's always there. That never changes. Then there's the fresh layer, the contributions of the people currently using the facilities. That changes throughout the day, gets stronger, gets more complex. Then there's the vinegar, sharp and acidic, cutting through everything else. And underneath it all, there's the smell of bodies, sweat, unwashed skin, breath, humanity concentrated in a poorly ventilated space. You don't smell it anymore, not consciously. Your brain has adapted. It's turned down the volume on your sense of smell, because otherwise you couldn't function. But it's still there, still coating your tongue, still filling your lungs, still becoming part of you. A group of freedmen enters. You can tell they're freedmen by their clothes, by the way they carry themselves. They're not slaves anymore, but they're not quite citizens either. They occupy that strange middle space, free but not equal. They're conducting business. You can tell by the way they're talking. Serious, focused. Numbers and terms and negotiations. They take seats along the left wall. Close together, a cluster of 5 men. They continue their conversation without pause. One of them is explaining something about shipping costs. Another is arguing about tariffs. A third is taking notes on a wax tablet. They're using the latrine as an office, as a meeting space. This is normal. This is how business gets done. You move past them to check the water flow. It's one of your constant concerns. The water needs to keep moving. That's what makes the whole system work. The Romans figured out how to channel water from the aqueducts, route it beneath the latrine benches, and use the constant flow to carry waste into the cloaca maxima. It's brilliant engineering. Genuinely brilliant. It's also temperamental. The flow rate matters. Too slow and the waste doesn't move. It accumulates. It backs up. The smell gets worse. The system stops working. Too fast and it splashes. It creates spray. It makes the whole experience even more unpleasant than it already is. The ideal flow is steady, consistent, fast enough to carry things away, but not so fast that it causes problems. You monitor it constantly. Right now, the flow looks good. You can see the water moving beneath the benches. Clear enough. Fast enough. You can hear it too when you tune out the voices. That rushing sound. That constant background noise. The water is doing its job. The system is functioning. But you know it won't last. Something always goes wrong. A blockage. A slowdown. A backup. You've learned to watch for the signs. The change in sound. The change in smell. The way the water level rises slightly in the channel. You catch problems early because you have to. Because if you don't, the whole latrine becomes unusable, and everyone blames you. A young boy enters with his father. The boy is maybe 7 or 8 years old enough to use the facilities alone, but his father has brought him anyway. First time, probably. The boy looks nervous. His eyes are wide. He's staring at the benches, at the holes, at the people sitting shoulder to shoulder. The father guides him to an empty spot, helps him up onto the bench. The marble is high for a child. The boy's feet don't quite touch the ground when he's sitting. He looks scared, vulnerable. The father stands next to him, talking quietly, reassuring. Other people on the benches glance over. Some smile, some ignore it. This is normal. Children use the latrine. Children learn. The boy reaches for a tersorium. His hand is small. The stick is long. He struggles with it. The father helps, shows him how to hold it, how to use it. The boy's face is red, embarrassed. But he does it. He finishes. The father helps him down from the bench. They leave together, the father's hand on the boy's shoulder. You watched the whole thing, not because you wanted to, but because you were standing right there. Because you're always standing right there. Because this is your job. To be present. To be available. To be invisible while also being constantly aware of everything happening in this space. The boy didn't look at you. Neither did the father. You were part of the background. Part of the marble and the water and the smell. Not a person. Just a component of the experience. An old man enters. You recognize him. He comes every day. Same time. Midday. Like clockwork. He's ancient. Bent. Moves slowly. Uses a walking stick. He navigates the steps carefully, one at a time, holding the wall for support. He makes it to the benches. He sits in the same spot every day. Third hole from the left on the back wall. He nods at you. Just a small nod. Barely perceptible. Acknowledgement. Recognition. You exist to him. You're a person he sees every day. He doesn't speak to you. Doesn't ask your name. Doesn't engage beyond that tiny nod. But it's more than most people give you. It makes it worse somehow. The acknowledgement without connection. The recognition without respect. He sees you. He knows you're there. But you're still just the person who maintains the sponges. Still just the worker. Still just the help. The nod doesn't change your status. It just makes you aware of it. The old man uses the facilities. Takes his time. He's in no hurry. When he's done, he stands slowly. Carefully. He nods again as he passes you on his way out. Same small nod. Same minimal acknowledgement. Then he's gone. Climbing the steps. Disappearing into the city above. You'll see him again tomorrow. Same time, same spot, same nod. The rhythm of his life intersects with the rhythm of yours in this one small way. He shits. You maintain the implements he uses to clean himself. He acknowledges you exist. You both continue with your days. A wealthy woman's servants enter. 3 of them, 2 men and a woman. They're well dressed for slaves. Clean tunics, good sandals. They serve someone with money, someone who can afford to keep their household staff presentable. They move through the latrine with purpose, efficient. They're running errands. This is just one stop among many. They don't sit together. The social hierarchy of the latrine is subtle but real. There are better spots and worse spots. The back wall is preferred. More space. Better airflow. The side walls are acceptable. The front, near the entrance, is least desirable. Colder. More exposed to the street. The wealthy woman's servants take spots on the back wall. Not because they're wealthy, but because they got here at the right time. Because the spots were available. You've noticed the patterns. Who sits where? Who waits for specific spots? Who takes whatever's available? The soldiers don't care. They sit wherever. They're used to worse conditions. The merchants are particular. They want the back wall. They want to be seen conducting business in a respectable location. The slaves and the poor take what they can get. They don't have the luxury of preference. But everyone uses the same tersoriums. That's the thing about the latrine. It's democratic in the most basic way. Rich and poor. Free and slave. Citizen and foreigner. Everyone sits on the same marble. Everyone uses the same sponges. Everyone's waste flows into the same sewer. The great equalizer. The place where status matters less than usual. Except, it still matters. The wealthy get better spots. They get served first when there's a problem. They complain louder and get heard faster. The poor wait. The slaves are invisible. And you're somewhere below all of them. You're the person who touches the sponges after everyone else has used them. You're the person who cleans up the messes. You're the person who makes the whole system work while everyone pretends you don't exist. The light changes. You notice it suddenly. The angle of sun coming down the entrance steps has shifted. It's hitting the marble at a different angle now, creating patterns, shadows and brightness. The marble almost looks beautiful for a moment. Clean. Pure. The way it must have looked when it was first installed. Then someone sits on it and the moment passes. The marble is just marble again, stained, worn, functional. The light is just light. The beauty was an accident. A trick of angle and timing. It doesn't change anything. Doesn't make the work easier. Doesn't make the smell better. Doesn't make you less invisible. But you noticed it. That's something. In the middle of the noise and the smell, and the endless repetition, you noticed something beautiful. Something absurd. Light falling on marble in a public toilet. Making it look, for just a moment, like something worth looking at. The rhythm of the latrine has patterns. You've learned them. The morning rush is soldiers and workers. People who need to get in and out quickly. They're efficient. Focused. They don't linger. By mid-morning, the merchants arrive. They're slower. They talk. They conduct business. They treat the latrine as a social space. Midday is the busiest time. Everyone. All at once. The benches are packed. The vessels are in constant use. You're moving constantly. Replacing. Monitoring. Responding. Late afternoon will be different. The crowds will thin slightly. The conversations will change. People will be tired, less energetic. The latrine will feel different, quieter, heavier. But that's hours away. Right now, it's midday. Right now, it's chaos. A man vomits into the channel. Not onto the floor this time. Actually into the water channel beneath the bench. Small mercies. He's sick. Or drunk. Or both. The people near him shift away. Not far. There's nowhere to go. Just enough to establish distance. The man finishes vomiting. He sits there for a moment, breathing hard. Then he uses the facilities and leaves. You don't have to clean it up. The water carries it away. That's what the water is for. That's what makes this system brilliant. The waste disappears. The vomit disappears. Everything flows into the sewer and becomes someone else's problem. Or no one's problem. Just gone. You watch the water flow. It's constant. Unchanging. The water doesn't care what it's carrying. Doesn't care about the people sitting above it. Doesn't care about you standing beside it. It just flows. Day and night. Week after week. Year after year. The water was flowing before you started this job. It'll keep flowing after you're gone. There's a philosophy in that somewhere. The water flows. The waste disappears. The system functions. And you're the person who makes sure the system keeps functioning. You maintain the sponges. You monitor the flow. You clean up the messes that the water can't handle. You're essential. You're also replaceable. The system needs someone. It doesn't need you specifically. Any desperate person would do. That's the truth of it. You're not special. You're not skilled in any way that matters. You're just willing to do this work. Willing to stand in this room. Willing to touch these sponges. Willing to be invisible. That's your qualification. That's your value. A group of men starts arguing. Politics. You can tell by the tone. By the words you catch. Something about the Senate. Something about taxes. Something about a decision that affects trade. One man is angry. Red-faced. Gesturing. The others are trying to calm him down. Trying to reason with him. It's not working. The argument gets louder. Other people on the benches are watching now. Some with interest, some with annoyance. The angry man stands up, still arguing, still gesturing. He's not done using the facilities. He's just too worked up to sit still. Someone tells him to sit down. He ignores them. You move closer, not to intervene. You have no authority here, no power. But because arguments sometimes lead to fights, fights sometimes lead to damage. Broken tersoriums, spilled vessels, messes you'll have to clean up. You position yourself near your corner, ready to protect your supplies if necessary. The argument resolves itself. The angry man's friends convince him to sit down, to finish his business, to save the political debate for somewhere else. He sits, still muttering, still angry, but sitting. The tension in the room eases. People return to their own conversations. The moment passes. You return to your spot. Crisis averted. Or crisis that never quite happened. You've learned to read the room, to sense when things might escalate, to be ready. Most of the time, nothing happens. People argue. People get angry. Then they leave. The latrine returns to its normal chaos. The smell shifts again. It's hard to describe how. It's not worse exactly, just different. The heat has intensified it, changed its character, made it more present, more unavoidable. You're breathing it with every breath. It's coating your throat, settling in your lungs, becoming part of your body's internal atmosphere. You think about the sponges, about what they do, about what they touch, about the fact that you're responsible for them. It's absurd when you think about it. The entire Roman sanitation system, this marvel of engineering, this triumph of civilization, depends on sea sponges tied to sticks. And those sponges depend on you. You maintain them. You clean them. You replace them. You make sure they're available when people need them. Without you, the system fails. Without the sponges, people would have to use their hands, or cloth, or nothing. The sponges are essential, which makes you essential. But nobody thinks about it that way. Nobody thinks about the sponges at all. They just use them. They just assume they'll be there. They just assume someone is maintaining them. That someone is you. And you're invisible. Necessary and invisible. Essential and ignored. There's a metaphor in that. For Rome. For civilization. For the way systems work. The visible parts get the glory. The aqueducts, the roads, the buildings, the engineering marvels that everyone can see and admire. But the invisible parts make it all function. The maintenance, the cleaning, the unglamorous work that nobody wants to think about. You're the invisible part. You're the person who makes the visible parts possible. You're the foundation that nobody sees. You're the work that nobody acknowledges. And if you stop doing it, everything would fall apart. But you won't get credit. You won't get recognition. You'll just keep standing here. Keep maintaining the sponges. Keep being invisible. A merchant conducts a transaction. He's sitting on the bench, negotiating with someone standing near him. They're discussing fabric, quality, price, delivery terms. The merchant is firm. The other man is trying to bargain. Back and forth. The merchant doesn't budge. He knows what his fabric is worth. He knows what he'll accept. The other man finally agrees. They shake hands. Business concluded. In a public toilet. While sitting on a marble bench with a hole in it. While surrounded by 40 other people doing the same thing. This is normal. This is how Rome works. Business happens everywhere. Deals get made everywhere. The latrine is just another location. Just another space where people gather and talk and conduct their affairs. You're part of that space. Part of the infrastructure that makes it possible. The merchant couldn't conduct his business here if the latrine wasn't functional, if the sponges weren't available, if the water wasn't flowing, if someone, you, wasn't maintaining it all. He doesn't think about that. He just thinks about his fabric and his price and his profit. You think about the sponges, always the sponges. That's your job. That's your focus. That's your entire existence in this space. Monitor the sponges. Replace the sponges. Clean the sponges. Make sure the sponges are ready. Everything else is just context. Just background. Just the world happening around you while you do your work. The vessels need checking again. You move to the first one. Count the tersoriums. 12. Check their condition. Most are fine. One is starting to fray. You pull it out. Examine it more closely. The sponge is still attached, but barely. The cord is rotting. Give it another hour and it'll fail. Better to replace it now. You take it to your corner. You have a replacement ready. You've learned to prepare them in advance, during quiet moments, during the brief lulls between crises. You attach the fresh sponge to a stick. You tie the cord. You test it. You add it to the vessel. You discard the worn one. Nobody notices. Nobody thanks you. Nobody acknowledges that you just prevented a problem, that you just kept the system functioning. You just did your job. Invisible work. Necessary work. Unacknowledged work. The water keeps flowing beneath the benches. The conversations keep echoing off the walls. The smell keeps hanging in the humid air. And you keep standing in your corner. Keep watching. Keep waiting. Keep maintaining. Because that's the job. Because someone has to do it. Because that someone is you. Your hands have started to prune. Not just damp anymore. Actually pruning. The skin on your fingertips is wrinkled and white, waterlogged from hours of contact with the vinegar solution, with the water you use for rinsing, with the general humidity that hangs in the latrine like a wet blanket. You look at them during a brief moment when no one needs anything. The skin is puckered, soft, vulnerable looking. Your knuckles are cracked and raw. There's a split forming on your right thumb that stings every time you grip a tersorium handle. This is what your hands look like now. This is what they'll look like tomorrow. And the day after. The vinegar doesn't help. The constant moisture doesn't help. Your hands are slowly dissolving in the solution you use to maintain the sponges. There's a metaphor in there somewhere. You're too tired to find it. Your lower back has moved past pain into something else. A deep, grinding ache that radiates from your spine into your hips. You've been standing for hours, bending to check the vessels, reaching to replace tersoriums, kneeling to clean up messes. Your body wasn't designed for this. Nobody's body was designed for this. But here you are, doing it anyway, because the alternative is not eating. You try to stretch, carefully, subtly. You don't want to draw attention. You arch your back slightly, trying to relieve the pressure. Something pops. It doesn't help. The ache settles back in immediately, familiar and persistent. You've learned to work through it. You've learned to ignore it. Except you can't really ignore it. You just learn to function while it's there. Your feet are the worst. The marble floor is beautiful. Smooth. Well crafted. Expensive. It's also completely unforgiving. No give. No cushion. Just hard stone that your feet have been standing on for 6 hours straight. Your arches hurt. Your heels hurt. There's a spot on your left foot, just behind the toes, that's gone numb. You shift your weight again. Left foot. Right foot. It doesn't matter. They both hurt. You're wearing sandals. Cheap sandals. The kind that provide minimal protection and no support. The straps are cutting into your skin. You can feel a blister forming on your right ankle where the leather rubs. It'll be worse tomorrow. It's always worse the next day. But you can't afford better sandals. You can't afford to not work. So you stand on the marble floor in your cheap sandals, and you feel your feet slowly breaking down. The smell has worked its way into your pores. You noticed it this morning when you washed your face. The smell was still there, on your skin, in your hair. You scrubbed. You used soap. It didn't matter. The smell is part of you now. It's in the fabric of your tunic. It's in the creases of your skin. It's in your lungs. You breathe it in all day, and then you breathe it out, and it just circulates, becoming part of your personal atmosphere. People can smell you coming. You know this. You've seen the way they shift when you walk past on the street. The subtle lean away. The slight wrinkle of the nose. You smell like the latrine. You smell like vinegar and shit and damp stone. You smell like your job. There's no separating the two. You are what you do. What you do smells terrible. Your tunic is damp, not soaking wet, just perpetually damp. The humidity in the latrine, the splashing from the vessels, your own sweat, it all combines to keep the fabric slightly moist against your skin. It's uncomfortable. It chafes. There's a spot under your right arm where the damp fabric has been rubbing all day. The skin is raw. It'll be worse tomorrow. Everything is worse tomorrow. That's the thing about this job. It's cumulative. Each day adds to the damage. Your hands get more cracked. Your back gets more strained. Your feet develop new blisters on top of old blisters. Your body is slowly being worn down by the work. And there's no recovery time. No day off. No chance for your hands to heal or your back to rest. You just keep going. Keep standing. Keep bending. Keep working. A man in a toga enters the latrine. You notice him immediately, not because he's doing anything unusual, but because he's wearing a toga, a real toga. Clean. Well draped. Expensive fabric. This is not a working man. This is not someone who has to maintain sponges for a living. This is someone with money. Status. The kind of person who has slaves to do things for him, but still comes to the public latrine because it's a social space. Because business gets done here. He surveys the benches, looking for a spot, looking for the right spot. Not just any hole will do. He wants to sit near someone specific, or away from someone specific. The politics of the latrine. He settles on a spot near the back wall, next to a merchant who's already seated. They know each other. You can tell by the way they greet each other. Familiar. Comfortable. The man in the toga sits down. He adjusts his toga carefully, making sure it doesn't touch the floor, making sure it drapes properly. Even here, even in a public toilet, appearances matter. He reaches for a tersorium without looking. His hand goes to the vessel. He pulls one out. He examines it. He makes a face. "This one is disgusting," he says. "Not to you. Not to anyone in particular. Just a statement. A complaint. An observation about the state of the world." He drops the tersorium back into the vessel, reaches for another one, examines it. This one meets his standards apparently. You move closer. Not because he asked, but because you know what comes next. You've seen this before. The wealthy ones are particular. They have standards. They expect things to be maintained to their satisfaction. And when they're not, they complain. Sometimes to you, sometimes to whoever will listen. He uses the tersorium. Efficiently. Quickly. He's done this before. This is routine for him. When he's finished, he doesn't put it back in the vessel. He holds it out, away from his body, like it's contaminated, which it is. But the gesture is clear. He doesn't want to touch it anymore. He wants someone else to deal with it. He looks at you. Direct eye contact. The first time today someone has actually looked at you, really looked at you. Not through you, not past you, at you. "Take this," he says. Not a request. A command. His voice is calm, matter of fact. The tone you'd use to tell a slave to bring you wine, or to tell a dog to sit. There's no malice in it. No particular cruelty. Just the absolute certainty that you will do what he says because that's the natural order of things. You take the tersorium. Your pruned fingers wrap around the wooden handle. The sponge is heavy with moisture. With other things, you don't look at it. You just take it. You walk back to your corner. You rinse it in the bucket of water you keep for this purpose. You place it back in the vessel with the others. The man in the toga has already forgotten you exist. He's talking to the merchant now. Business. Something about a shipment. Something about payment terms. His voice is animated, engaged. He's fully present in this conversation. You were a momentary interruption, a function performed. Now you're gone from his awareness. You return to your spot, your corner, your station. The place where you stand and wait for the next thing to go wrong. Your hands are still damp. Your back still hurts. Your feet still ache. But now there's something else. A tightness in your chest. A familiar feeling that you've learned to recognize and ignore. Indignity. That's what it is. The feeling of being treated like a tool, like a piece of equipment. Not a person. Not someone with thoughts or feelings or a life outside this latrine. Just a function. A service. The person who takes the dirty sponge so the man in the toga doesn't have to touch it anymore. You've felt this before. Many times. Every day, really. It's part of the job. Part of being invisible until you're needed. Part of being the person who maintains the things nobody wants to think about. You're necessary. You're also beneath notice. Those two things coexist without contradiction in the minds of the people who use this latrine. The man in the toga lives in a different world than you. He wakes up in a house with multiple rooms, with slaves to bring him food, with clean clothes and fresh water and the luxury of not having to think about where his waste goes after he produces it. He conducts business. He has social standing. He has a future that extends beyond the next meal, the next day, the next disaster. You wake up in a single room. You eat bread and whatever else you can afford. You wear the same tunic until it falls apart. You spend your days standing in a public toilet, maintaining sponges that other people use to wipe their asses. Your future extends exactly as far as your ability to keep doing this job. There is no advancement, no opportunity, no path to anything better. The man in the toga will never think about you again. You'll think about him for the rest of the day, not because he was cruel, not because he did anything particularly wrong, but because the interaction was a reminder, a small, sharp reminder of exactly where you are in the hierarchy of Roman society, which is to say, barely on it. You've accepted this. That's the worst part, not the anger, not the resentment, the acceptance. You've learned to swallow the indignity, to let it settle in your stomach alongside the hunger and the exhaustion and the pain in your back. You've learned that fighting it doesn't change anything. That anger is a luxury you can't afford. That the only way to survive this job is to accept it for what it is. A job. Your job. The thing you do to stay alive. The water beneath the benches changes sound. You notice it immediately. The pitch is different. Lower. Slower. The constant rushing that's been the background music of your entire day has shifted into something else. Something wrong. You move to the edge of the bench. Carefully. Trying not to draw attention. You look down into the channel where the water flows. The flow has slowed. Significantly. What was a steady stream is now a sluggish trickle. And the water level is rising. This is bad. The water is supposed to flow constantly. That's what carries the waste away. That's what keeps the latrine functional. When the water slows, the waste doesn't move. It accumulates. It backs up. The smell gets worse. The system stops working. You need to find the blockage. You move along the bench, looking down into the channel. The people sitting on the benches don't notice. Or they don't care. They're having their conversations, conducting their business, living their lives. You're trying to prevent a sewage backup. There, about halfway down the left wall, you can see it. Something is blocking the channel. Something large and solid that the water is flowing around instead of carrying away. You can't tell what it is from here. You'll have to get closer. You kneel beside the bench. The marble is cold and damp against your knees. You lean down, trying to see into the channel. The smell is worse down here. Concentrated. The water is backing up behind the blockage, creating a small pool of things you don't want to look at too closely. You need to clear it. You have a long hook for exactly this purpose. A wooden pole with a metal hook on the end. You use it to fish things out of the channel. Things that fall in. Things that shouldn't be there. Things that block the flow. You retrieve the hook from your corner. You return to the blockage. You kneel again. You insert the hook into the channel, trying to snag whatever is blocking the flow. The water is murky. You can't see clearly. You're working by feel. The hook catches on something. You pull. It doesn't move. You pull harder. The hook slips. You try again. This time you get a better grip. You pull. Slowly. Carefully. Whatever is blocking the channel is heavy. Stuck. You brace yourself against the bench and pull. It moves. Slightly. You pull again. It shifts. The water starts flowing faster around it. You pull once more and it comes free. You drag it up out of the channel. It's a piece of wood. A broken plank. Maybe from a cart. Maybe from construction debris. Someone threw it into the latrine and it got caught in the channel. You lift it out. Water and other things drip from it. You carry it to your discard bucket. You'll dispose of it later. The water flow returns to normal. The sound changes back. The rushing returns. The level in the channel drops. Crisis averted. The system is working again. Nobody noticed. Nobody thanked you. Nobody even knows there was a problem. You return the hook to your corner. Your hands are shaking slightly. Not from fear. From exertion. From the strain of pulling that plank free. From the accumulated exhaustion of the day. You wipe your hands on your tunic. It doesn't help. They're still damp. Still pruned. Still cracked. A voice behind you. What's going on here? You turn. It's the overseer. The man who's technically in charge of this latrine. You see him maybe once a week, maybe less. He shows up. He inspects. He finds things to complain about. He leaves. He's here now, standing at the entrance, looking around with the expression of someone who's already decided to be disappointed. The water flow was blocked, you say. I cleared it. He walks closer. He's a freedman. Former slave who earned or bought his freedom and now has a position of minor authority. He takes it seriously. Very seriously. He's wearing a clean tunic. His hair is combed. He smells like olive oil and self-importance. Blocked with what? He asks. A piece of wood. Someone threw it in. He looks at you like this is somehow your fault. You need to prevent that, he says. You don't respond. There's no point. You can't prevent people from throwing things into the latrine. You can't watch every person who enters. You can't control what they do. You can only respond when problems occur. But explaining this won't change anything. He walks along the benches, inspecting, looking for problems. He stops at one of the vessels. He pulls out a tersorium, examines it, makes a face. "This sponge is worn," he says. "I know. I'm replacing them as supplies arrive. They should be replaced more frequently. I replace them when I have replacements." He drops the tersorium back into the vessel. He's not interested in your explanation. He's interested in finding fault, in demonstrating his authority, in reminding you that he's the overseer and you're the worker. "The solution needs changing," he says. "I'll change it this evening. It should have been changed already." You don't respond. The solution is fine. It's not ideal, but it's functional. You'll change it when you have time. When the crowd thins, when you can step away from monitoring. But he doesn't care about the practical realities of the job. He cares about asserting his position. He looks around the latrine once more. "Keep this place cleaner," he says. Then he leaves. Just like that. No acknowledgement of the blockage you just cleared. No recognition of the work you're doing. Just criticism and a command. And then he's gone. You return to your corner. Your hands are still shaking. Now, it's anger. Small, impotent anger that you can't express, can't act on, can't do anything with except swallow it down and keep working. The overseer will go back to wherever he spends his days. You'll stay here, standing on the marble floor, monitoring the tersoriums, waiting for the next problem. The afternoon stretches ahead of you. Hours. More hours. The sun moves across the sky, but you can't see it from down here. You can only tell time by the quality of light that filters down the entrance steps, by the rhythm of the crowds, by the way your body feels. Right now, your body feels like it's reached a new level of exhaustion. Past tired, past sore, into something else. A kind of numb endurance. Your feet have stopped hurting in a specific way and started hurting in a general way. Your back has settled into a constant ache. Your hands have accepted their pruned state. You're not functioning well. You're just functioning. The crowd never thins. That's the thing about the afternoon. You'd think people would have finished their business by now. You'd think the latrine would empty out. It doesn't. New people keep arriving. The benches stay full. The conversations continue. The tersoriums move from vessel to hand to use to vessel. You replace another sponge. This one fell apart in someone's hand. They complained. Loudly. You apologized. You provided a replacement. You added the ruined sponge to your discard pile. You made a mental note that you're running low on replacements again. You'll need to request more supplies. The request will be ignored or delayed. You'll make do with what you have. Time becomes meaningless. You've been standing here for hours, but it feels like days, or minutes. You can't tell anymore. The rhythm of the work has taken over. Monitor. Replace. Clean. Respond. Monitor. Replace. Clean. Respond. Over and over. Your brain has stopped processing it as individual tasks. It's just one continuous action that never ends. A woman vomits near the entrance. You see it happen. She's pregnant. Very pregnant. She made it down the steps but not to the benches. She vomits on the floor. Then she starts crying. Someone helps her to a bench. Someone else looks at you expectantly. You get your bucket and rags. This is also your job. You walk to the entrance. You kneel in the vomit. You clean it up. Your hands are in it. Your knees are in it. The smell is sharp and acidic, and it cuts through even the background smell of the latrine. You wipe. You rinse. You wipe again. The pregnant woman is still crying, quietly, trying not to draw attention. Someone is talking to her softly, reassuring her. You finish cleaning. You carry your bucket back to your corner. You rinse your hands. They're still pruned, still cracked. Now they smell like vomit too. You return to your spot, your station, your corner of the latrine where you stand and wait. Your feet are numb now, completely numb. You can't feel the marble anymore. You can't feel your sandals. You're just standing on stumps that used to be feet. The light changes. Late afternoon. The sun is lower. The quality of light coming down the steps is different. Warmer. Softer. It doesn't reach far into the latrine. Just the entrance area. The rest of the space stays in its perpetual dim humidity. You have hours left. The latrine doesn't close until evening. Until the crowds finally thin. Until the last person finishes their business and leaves. Then you'll do your final maintenance. Your final cleaning. Then you'll walk home. Then you'll try to wash the smell off. Then you'll sleep. Then you'll wake up and do this again. This is your life. Standing in a Roman public latrine, maintaining sponges on sticks, being invisible, being necessary, being the person who makes civilization function while civilization pretends you don't exist. Your body hurts. All of it. Every part. Your hands. Your feet. Your back. Your knees. Your shoulders. Your neck. Everything hurts in that deep, persistent way that means it won't stop hurting when you stop working. It'll hurt tonight. It'll hurt tomorrow. It'll hurt until your body finally breaks down completely and you can't do this job anymore. Then what? You don't think about that. You can't afford to think about that. You just keep standing. Keep monitoring. Keep maintaining. Keep being the person who cleans the sponges. The water flows beneath the benches. The conversations echo off the stone walls. The smell hangs in the humid air. And you stand in your corner, watching, waiting, enduring. Because that's the job. Because someone has to do it. Because that someone is you. The light is fading when the crowds finally start to thin. Not all at once. Never all at once. But gradually. The constant flow of bodies slows to a trickle. The conversations become quieter. Fewer. The benches that were packed shoulder to shoulder all day now have gaps. Empty spaces. You can see the marble again. You've been here for 12 hours. Maybe 13. You stopped counting somewhere around midday when time stopped meaning anything except the distance between now and when you can leave. Your feet are beyond numb. Your back has locked into a permanent curve. Your hands look like they belong to someone else. Someone older. Someone who's been doing this job for decades instead of however long you've actually been doing it. The last few stragglers finish their business. A merchant. An old woman. A slave running a final errand before heading back to his master's house. They use the facilities. They use the tersoriums. They leave. The latrine empties. The sound changes. Without the voices, without the bodies, the space becomes what it actually is. A stone room with holes in benches and water flowing beneath, and a smell that never leaves. You're alone. Finally alone. This is when the real work begins. You start with the vessels, all 3 of them. The solution inside is cloudy, discolored. bits of things floating in it that you've learned not to examine. The vinegar smell is still there, but it's been overwhelmed by everything else, by the accumulated filth of a day's worth of use, by the reality of what these sponges have been doing. You lift the first vessel. It's heavy. Clay and liquid and 40 tersoriums soaking inside. You carry it to the drainage channel. You pour it out. The solution runs into the water below, mixing with everything else, disappearing into the sewer system. The vessel is lighter now. Empty. You set it aside. You do the same with the other 2 vessels. Pour them out. Watch the cloudy liquid disappear. Your arms shake with the effort. Not because the vessels are that heavy, but because you're that tired. Because your muscles have been working for 12 hours, and they're done. They're past done. They're operating on whatever comes after exhaustion. You need to mix fresh solution. You have a large jug of vinegar in your corner. You have salt. You have lime. You've done this so many times you don't need to measure. You just know. Pour the vinegar. Add the salt. Add the lime. Mix it with a wooden paddle until everything dissolves. The smell is sharp. Acidic. It cuts through the background smell of the latrine. It makes your eyes water. You fill the first vessel, then the second, then the third. Fresh solution. Clean. Or as clean as it's going to get. You place the tersoriums back inside. One by one. 40 sponges on sticks, soaking in vinegar and salt and lime, ready for tomorrow. Ready for the next day, of being used by hundreds of people who won't think about you at all. You sweep the floor. There's a broom in your corner. Rough bristles. Worn handle. You sweep the marble floor, pushing debris toward the drainage channel. Bits of things. Dirt. Pieces of food someone dropped. Other things you don't identify. The broom makes a scraping sound against the stone. It echoes in the empty space. Your back screams with every stroke. Bending. Straightening. Bending. Straightening. The muscles in your lower back are on fire. Not the dull ache from earlier. Actual fire. Sharp and hot and getting worse with every movement. You keep sweeping. Because the floor needs to be swept. Because that's part of the job. Because if you don't do it now, you'll have to do it tomorrow morning. And tomorrow morning will be hard enough already. You finish sweeping. You lean the broom against the wall. You stand there for a moment, just breathing, just existing in the space. The water is still flowing beneath the benches. That sound, that constant rushing that's been the soundtrack of your entire day, it'll keep flowing all night. It'll still be flowing when you come back tomorrow. You're done. The latrine is ready for tomorrow. The tersoriums are clean. The solution is fresh. The floor is swept. Everything is in place. You can leave. You walk toward the steps. Slowly. Your feet don't want to move. They've been standing on marble for 12 hours, and they've forgotten how to walk. Each step is deliberate. Careful. You hold onto the wall for balance. Your legs are shaking. Actually shaking. You make it to the steps. You climb. The night air hits you. It's cold. Colder than you expected. The latrine is always warm from the bodies and the humidity. Out here, the temperature has dropped. It's late. The sun has been down for a while. The streets are quieter than they were this morning. Different people. Different purposes. You start walking. Home is not far. Maybe 20 minutes. Maybe 30 at the pace you're moving. You walk through streets you know by heart. Past buildings you pass every day. past shops that are closed now, past people who are heading to or from wherever people go at night. They give you space, not obviously, not dramatically, but you notice it. The way someone crosses to the other side of the street when they see you coming, the way a group of people parts slightly to let you through, the way no one makes eye contact. They can smell you. They know what you do. They know what you are. You smell like the latrine, like vinegar and shit, and damp stone, and 12 hours of standing in a room where hundreds of people relieve themselves. You smell like your job. The smell is in your tunic, in your hair, on your skin, in your lungs. You're breathing it out with every breath. You're a walking advertisement for the work you do. A woman pulls her child closer as you pass. Not aggressively, just a subtle movement. Protective, keeping the child away from you. From your smell, from whatever contamination you might carry. The child stares at you. Curious. The woman doesn't look at you at all. You keep walking. Past the forum. Past the temple. Past the neighborhoods where people with money live. Where houses have multiple rooms and private latrines and slaves to empty the chamber pots. Where people don't have to think about where their waste goes or who maintains the systems that carry it away. Your neighborhood is different. Apartment blocks. Tall. Crowded. Poorly maintained. People living on top of each other in rooms that are too small and too expensive. This is where people like you live. People who work jobs nobody wants. People who can't afford anything better. People who are one disaster away from having nothing. You climb the stairs to your apartment. 4 flights. Narrow stairs. Dark. You can hear people through the walls. Conversations. Arguments. A baby crying. Life happening in small rooms all around you. You reach your door. You push it open. Your apartment is one room. One room with a sleeping mat in the corner. A small table. A stool. A clay lamp. A few possessions that aren't worth listing. This is where you live. This is home. It's cold. There's no heat except what you can afford to burn, which is nothing most nights. The walls are thin. The ceiling leaks when it rains. But it's yours. Or at least you pay for it. You have a bucket of water. Cold water. You filled it this morning from the public fountain. You use it to wash. You strip off your tunic. The fabric is damp and stiff, and it smells like everything you've been standing in all day. You drop it on the floor. You'll wash it tomorrow. Maybe. If you have time. If you have energy. You pour water over your hands. The water is cold. Shockingly cold. It runs over your pruned fingers, over your cracked knuckles, over the split on your thumb. It stings. You scrub. You try to get the smell out. The vinegar. The other things. You scrub until your hands are red and raw, and the water in the bucket is cloudy. The smell doesn't come out. It's in your skin, in the creases of your palms, under your fingernails. You can still smell it. You'll still smell it tomorrow. You'll still smell it next week. The smell is part of you now, part of your body, part of your identity. You pour water over your face, over your hair, over your neck and shoulders. The cold water runs down your body. It doesn't help much. You're still dirty, still contaminated, still carrying the latrine with you. But you're cleaner than you were. That's something. You dry yourself with a rag. You put on a different tunic. Cleaner, or less dirty. It's hard to tell anymore. Everything you own smells like the latrine eventually. You can wash things. You can air them out. The smell comes back. It always comes back. You sit on the stool. Your body is grateful to be sitting. Your feet throb as blood flow returns. Your back slowly unclenches. Your hands rest in your lap, still damp, still wrinkled. You just sit. Just breathe. Just exist in a space that isn't the latrine. You have bread. Half a loaf from yesterday. It's hard. Stale. You eat it anyway. You chew slowly. Your jaw is tired. Everything is tired. The bread tastes like nothing. Or maybe your sense of taste has been overwhelmed by the smell. You eat because you need to eat. Because tomorrow you'll need energy to stand for another 12 hours. You think about tomorrow. It'll be the same. Exactly the same. You'll wake up before dawn. You'll walk to the latrine. You'll check the tersoriums. You'll monitor the crowds. You'll replace worn sponges. You'll clean up messes. You'll stand on the marble floor until your feet go numb. You'll breathe the smell until you stop noticing it. You'll be invisible until something goes wrong. Then you'll do it again the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. This is your life. This is what you do. There's no promotion, no advancement, no path to anything better. You maintain sponges in a public latrine. That's the job. That's all it will ever be. The Romans are proud of their sanitation systems. Justifiably so. They've built something remarkable. The aqueducts that bring fresh water from miles away. The cloaca maxima that carries waste out of the city. The public latrines that turn a basic human need into a social gathering place. The engineering is brilliant. The execution is impressive. The whole system is a marvel of civilization. And it requires you. It requires someone to maintain the tersoriums, someone to change the solution, someone to clean the floors, someone to clear the blockages, someone to stand in that room for 12 hours a day and make sure the system keeps functioning. That someone is invisible. The people who use the latrine don't think about you. The engineers who designed the system don't think about you. The politicians who praise Roman sanitation don't think about you. You're not part of the story. You're not part of the achievement. You're just the person who makes it possible. And if you disappeared tomorrow, they'd find someone else. That's the truth of it. You're necessary but not valued. Essential but expendable. The system needs someone to do this job. It doesn't need you specifically. Any desperate person would do. Any slave. Any freedman with no other options. Any citizen poor enough to accept this work. You're replaceable. You've always been replaceable. The water is still flowing beneath the latrine benches right now, even though you're not there. Even though the latrine is empty, the water flows. The system functions. It doesn't care who maintains it. It just needs to be maintained. You finish the bread. You stand up. Your body protests. Everything hurts in new and interesting ways now that you've stopped moving. Your feet, your back, your shoulders, your hands. You're not old, but you feel old. This job is aging you, wearing you down, breaking your body piece by piece. You lie down on your sleeping mat. It's thin, uncomfortable. The floor is hard beneath it. You can hear your neighbors through the wall. Someone is arguing. Someone else is coughing. The baby is still crying. You close your eyes. Tomorrow you'll wake up and do this again. You'll walk to the latrine in the dark. You'll prepare the tersoriums. You'll stand in that room full of people who don't see you. You'll maintain the system that makes Roman civilization possible. You'll be necessary, and invisible and expendable all at once. This is how the world works. Systems require maintenance. Maintenance requires people. And the people who do the maintenance are the ones nobody wants to think about. The ones who smell wrong. The ones who touch the things nobody else wants to touch. The ones who make everything function, while everyone else pretends they don't exist. You're one of those people. You've accepted this. Not happily, not proudly, but you've accepted it. Because acceptance is the only option. Because anger doesn't change anything. Because the alternative to this job is worse. No job. No food. No room with thin walls and a leaky ceiling. So you do the work. You maintain the sponges. You change the solution. You stand on the marble floor. You breathe the smell. You're invisible. You're necessary. You're the person who makes civilization possible while civilization looks the other way. The water flows. The system functions. And tomorrow, you'll be there to make sure it keeps flowing. Because someone has to. Because that someone is you.